The blade embassy rose steadily from the ash. Beams set, stone reinforced, workers moving in perfect rhythm. The Dragonborn stood at the center, watching every detail. "Keep that wall reinforced," he called. A pause. "And make sure the inner hall can hold a full garrison." The blades nodded, adjusting immediately. Raven Rock wasn't just surviving anymore. It was becoming strong. Then, the sky changed. Light. Blinding. A pillar of gold and white tore through the heavens and struck the ground just beyond the construction site. The world trembled. Not from force. From presence. Everyone froze. Even Skyren stepped back. "What is this?" the dragon murmured. The light faded slowly, and two figures stood where it had struck. One carried the weight of empires. Power. Command. The other radiated calm. Warmth. Judgment. The Dragonborn stepped forward. "You've got to be kidding me." The first spoke. "I am Talos." Silence. Shock rippled through the crowd. "The god of man," someone whispered. The second stepped forward. "And I am Stendar." The name carried its own weight. God of compassion. Mercy. Justice. People dropped to their knees. Not out of fear, but awe. The Dragonborn didn't. He just stared. "You're actually here." Talos smiled faintly. "Yes." A pause. "And for good reason." Stendar looked across the crowd. "You have done well," he said gently. "To stand, to endure." The people of Raven Rock listened, some in tears. Talos stepped forward, his gaze locking onto the Dragonborn. "You have changed the course of this world." A pause. "And you are not finished." The Dragonborn crossed his arms slightly. "You came to tell me that." Talos smirked. "No." Another step forward. "I came to help." Silence. Even the blades didn't move. Stendar added, "The threats you face are beyond mortal reach." A pause. "But not beyond ours." The Dragonborn exhaled slowly. "Murok." Talos nodded. "And more. Hermias Mora." The name alone darkened the air. Stendar's expression hardened slightly. "A corrupting influence." Talos raised a hand. "Then let us bring your enemy to you." The Dragonborn's eyes narrowed. "You can do that." Talos didn't answer. He simply acted. Light surged again. Power unlike anything before. Reality bent. Tore. From nothing. A figure was ripped into existence. Thrown from a realm not meant for mortals. Murok. He staggered forward, disoriented. What have you done?" His voice was filled with rage. "You dare pull me from my domain." His eyes locked onto the Dragonborn. "You." The air exploded. Battle began instantly. Murok struck first. Dragon aspect surged around him. Power flared. The Dragonborn answered in kind. Lightning cracked from his hands. Effuus Aroda. The force sent Murok sliding back. But not down. "You've grown," Murok said. "And you've fallen," the Dragonborn replied. They clashed. Blade against blade. Shout against shout. Yoltoor Shul. Flames roared. Murok countered. Fokrdin. Frost met fire in a violent explosion. The ebony warrior watched silently. This is beyond anything. Even the gods observed closely. Talos' gaze sharp. Stendar's calm but focused. Murok summoned dragons. But none came. "What?" he growled. Talos spoke calmly. "You are alone." That moment of hesitation was enough. The Dragonborn moved. Vast. Precise. A strike disarmed him. A second drove him to his knees. Silence fell. The Dragonborn stood over him, blade raised. Everyone watched, waiting. "Finish it," someone whispered. Murrock looked up, not afraid. "Do it." A pause. Then, the Dragonborn lowered his blade. Silence. "What?" Murrock said. The Dragonborn looked down at him. "You're done." A pause. "But you're not dead." Confusion. Shock. "Why?" Murrock demanded. "Because you're useful." Silence. "You know things I don't." Another pause. "And I don't waste power." Murrock stared at him. Then, slowly, he laughed. "You would make me serve you." The Dragonborn's voice didn't waver. "Yes." Silence. Then, Murrock bowed his head. "Very well." Gasps spread through the crowd. "He actually..." Murrock just... Even the ebony warrior looked surprised. Talos raised an eyebrow. "Unexpected." Stendar nodded slightly. "But wise." The Dragonborn stepped back. "Get up." Murrock rose slowly. No longer an enemy. But something else. Something dangerous. Something controlled. The Dragonborn turned to Talos and Stendar. "So..." A pause. "What's next?" Talos smiled. "Now." Another glance at Murrock. "We prepare." Stendar added softly. "For what comes after." Because now, the Dragonborn didn't just have dragons, or an army, or allies. He had gods, and even his enemies now stood beside him. Back in Ravenrock, the Dragonborn turned to Stendar. "I need a favor." The god of mercy looked at him calmly. "Speak." The Dragonborn gestured around. "This island." A pause. "These people." Another. "They've suffered long enough." Silence. "Can you help them?" Stendar studied him for a moment. Then, he nodded. "Yes." He stepped forward, raised his hand, and released his power. Light spread across Raven Rock. Soft. Warm. The ash vanished, blown away as if it had never existed. The ground shifted. Dark soil turned rich. Grass spread instantly. Green. Alive. Trees rose where there had been none. Strong. Full. The air changed. Clean. Pure. Alive. Silence fell across the island. Then, people dropped to their knees. Not in fear, but in overwhelming emotion. "It's gone," someone whispered. "The ash is gone." Tears fell freely. Families embraced. Hope became something real. The Dragonborn stood quietly, watching it all. Stendar stepped back. "It is done." Talos looked out across the transformed land. "A new beginning." The Dragonborn nodded slowly. "Yeah." And for the first time, Raven Rock didn't feel like a place barely surviving. It felt like somewhere worth fighting for. Because now, they weren't just building a kingdom. They were changing the world itself. Raven Rock stood reborn. Green fields stretched where ash once ruled. Children laughed where silence had lived. The Dragonborn turned to Delphine. "I'm heading back to Skyrim." She nodded, then shook her head slightly. "Not to Skyhaven Temple." He raised an eyebrow. "What?" "We moved," she said simply. A pause. Blackreach. Silence. Then, the Dragonborn smiled. "Good choice." He looked impressed. "Hard to find. Easy to defend." Delphine crossed her arms with a faint smirk. Exactly. He nodded. Stay here. She blinked. What? Supervise the embassy, he said. A pause. This place matters. Delphine exhaled. Then nodded. All right. She glanced at the others. Don't die. The Dragonborn smirked. No promises. The departure was something out of legend. The Dragonborn stood at the ship's bow. Behind him, Murok, the ebony warrior, and two gods, Talos, Stendar. Above them, dragons circled. 5 took flight with them. Skyrend, and 4 others. Odahviing remained behind, watching over Raven Rock, guarding. As the ship set sail, Delphine stood at the dock. Bring Skyrim back alive, she muttered. The sea was calm. Too calm. They're watching, Skyrend said from above. The Dragonborn didn't look up. I know. It didn't take long. A pirate ship appeared on the horizon. Small. Foolish. They see us, Murok said. And they still approach, the ebony warrior added. The Dragonborn sighed. Their mistake. The pirates fired. Arrows. They never reached. Because the sky answered first. 5 dragons descended. Fire. Frost. Lightning. The pirate ship didn't stand a chance. It was gone in moments. Nothing left but smoke and broken wood. Silence returned. That was unnecessary, Stendar said calmly. They chose it, Talos replied. The Dragonborn didn't comment. He just looked forward. Far away. Whispers spread. Among what remained of the vigilance of Stendar. He walks the world again. Both of them, Stendar and Talos. Hope and fear returned to their ranks. Back on the ship, the Dragonborn turned to the gods. You're quiet. Talos glanced at him. We will guide. A pause. But we will not fight. Stendar nodded. Unless it is necessary. Another pause. Daedric princes, Talos added. The Dragonborn looked at them. You want to destroy them. Talos' gaze hardened. For the sake of this world. Silence. The Dragonborn nodded slowly. Then we'll get along just fine. Windhelm came into view. And with it, a crowd. Word had spread fast. A ship. Dragons. The Dragonborn. But when they arrived, everything stopped. Because they saw him. Talos. Standing openly. A god among mortals. The Nords dropped to their knees instantly. Talos. He's real. He's here. Even hardened warriors bowed. The Dragonborn stepped forward. We need to talk to Ulfric. No one argued. Palace of the Kings. Ulfric Stormcloak stood waiting. But when the doors opened, he froze. The Dragonborn. Dragons outside. And behind him, Talos. Ulfric dropped to one knee instantly. My lord. Talos said nothing. Just watched. The Dragonborn stepped forward. Get up. Ulfric obeyed slowly. Why are you here? The Dragonborn didn't hesitate. Alliance. A pause. And something else. Ulfric's eyes narrowed slightly. Speak. The Dragonborn stepped closer. Your war. A pause. Your people. Another. Your racism. Silence. The room went cold. Be careful, one guard muttered. The Dragonborn ignored it. You push out dark elves. You treat Argonians like they're nothing. Another step forward. That ends now. Ulfric's jaw tightened. This is Nord land. Talos shifted slightly. That alone was enough. Ulfric felt it. The disappointment. Not anger. Worse. Disappointment. The Dragonborn spoke again. I'm building something. A pause. A kingdom. Ulfric blinked. You what? In Blackreach. Silence. A place where everyone is welcome. Nord. Dark Elf. Argonian. All of them. The weight of that hit hard. Ulfric looked at Talos again. Saw it clearly now. What he had become. What he had been doing. Slowly. His expression changed. Lie. A pause. I've lost sight of it. Silence. The Dragonborn didn't soften. Fix it. Ulfric nodded slowly. I will. Then. The Dragonborn shifted. Now. A pause. Alliance. Ulfric straightened. With you. Yes. Another pause. The Thalmor coming. That got his full attention. I destroyed their embassy. Ulfric blinked. You what? And I sent dragons to drive them out. Silence. But they'll be back. A pause. And when they come, we stand together. Ulfric didn't hesitate. You have my army. The Dragonborn nodded. Good. The Stormcloaks. Now allied with the Blades. The war had changed. The Dragonborn turned to the Ebony Warrior. I need you to go to Solitude. A pause. Find General Tullius. The warrior nodded. And bring him to Blackreach. Another pause. With a blade escort. Understood. He left immediately. Then, the Dragonborn looked back at Ulfric. You're coming with us. Ulfric blinked. I am. Yes. A pause. To Blackreach. Your kingdom, Ulfric asked. The Dragonborn nodded. I didn't even know it existed until recently. A faint smirk. They built it while I was gone. Ulfric let out a short breath. I'd say I'm surprised. But at this point, I'm not. Outside, the dragons roared. The people watched in awe. And at the center of it all, the Dragonborn stood, uniting armies, changing kings, and building something far greater than Skyrim had ever seen. A kingdom, one that would decide the fate of the world. The gates of Windhelm were thrown open. Ulfric's guards moved quickly through the city. Everyone to the courtyard. Now, Nord stepped out first. Confused. Curious. Then the dark elves of the Grey Quarter. Hesitant. Then, for the first time, Argonians were allowed through the gates. They entered cautiously. Watching. Waiting. Even a Kajiat caravan, once forced to remain outside, was brought in. The courtyard filled. Tension hung thick in the air. Old hatred. Old division. All standing in one place. Then, the Dragonborn stepped forward. Silence fell. He looked across them all. Every face. Every race. Every life. Skyrim is changing, he began. A pause. And not just here. He let the words settle. The Thalmor are coming. Murmurs spread instantly. They won't stop. They won't negotiate. They won't care who you are. His voice hardened. Nord. Elf. Argonian. Kajiat. A pause. They will see you all the same. Another. Enemies. Silence. The weight of that truth hit hard. The Dragonborn stepped forward. But here's the thing. A pause. We're not the same. Confusion flickered across faces. We're stronger. Another step. Different races. Different lives. But all living beings. He gestured outward. What's the difference? A pause. A Nord bleeds. An elf bleeds. An Argonian bleeds. A Khajiit bleeds. He looked up slightly. Even dragons bleed. Skyrend let out a low rumble above the city. The crowd shifted. Thinking. Feeling. We're not divided by what we are. The Dragonborn's voice rose. We're divided by what we choose to be. Silence. And right now. A pause. We choose whether we stand together or fall apart. The courtyard held its breath. Then, he made his offer. I'm building something. A pause. A kingdom. Another. One where all are welcome. He looked directly at the Argonians. You won't be locked out. Then to the Dark Elves. You won't be pushed aside. Then to the Khajiit. You won't be turned away. Silence. You'll have a place. A real one. Another pause. I haven't even seen it yet. A faint smirk. But when I do, I'll name it. The crowd stirred. Hope. Uncertainty. Then, a voice cut through it all. Enough. Everyone turned. At the gate, 50 armored figures stood. Thalmor. Guards moved instantly. Weapons drawn. Hold, the Dragonborn commanded. They stopped. The Thalmor leader stepped forward slowly. We're not here to fight. No one believed him. Then you're in the wrong place, a guard muttered. The Thalmor shook his head. We were forced into service. That alone caused murmurs. We heard the plans. A pause. An invasion. The courtyard went still. We don't know when. Another. But it's coming. He lowered his weapon. We don't want to die for them. A pause. We don't want to be part of it. Silence. We're asking for freedom. Tension filled the air. No one moved. No one spoke. Then, Stendar stepped forward. Calm. Radiant. They speak the truth. The words echoed. Not loud, but absolute. No lie can stand before me. Shock hit the crowd like a wave. That's Stendar. Eyes turned. And then, to Talos. Standing beside him. The realization spread. Slow. Then all at once. Two gods. They're both here. Even Ulfric stepped back slightly. The weight of it hit him fully now. Not just Talos, but another. Divine presence. Watching. Judging. The Dragonborn looked across the crowd. Then back to the Thalmor. You want out. They nodded. Then earn it. A pause. Stand with us. Silence. Fight for Skyrim. Another. Not against it. The Thalmor leader looked around. At the people. At the dragons above. At the gods themselves. Then, he dropped to one knee. We will. One by one. The others followed. Weapons lowered. Not enemies anymore. Something else. Something uncertain. But something new. The Dragonborn turned back to the crowd. This is what I mean. A pause. Unity. The word carried differently now. Because it wasn't just an idea anymore. It was happening. Right in front of them. And for the first time, Skyrim wasn't divided. It was beginning to stand together. The courtyard had not yet settled when the Dragonborn turned sharply. To the blades. 23 of them stood ready. And beside them, the ebony warrior. The Dragonborn's voice was calm. Direct. New orders. They straightened instantly. Gather Skyrim's Jarls. A pause. All of them. Murmurs spread slightly. And bring them to Blackreach. Even the ebony warrior's eyes narrowed slightly. A council, one blade asked. The Dragonborn nodded. A meeting of leaders. Another pause. To decide Skyrim's future. Silence. Then. Yes, Dragonborn. They moved immediately. The ebony warrior turned last. I'll ensure they come. The Dragonborn gave a small nod. I know. Then. He turned to the kneeling Thalmor. You wanted freedom. They looked up. Yes. Then earn it. A pause. Go with them. Confusion flickered. Guard the Jarls. Another pause. Prove you've chosen the right side. The Thalmor leader didn't hesitate. We will. They rose. And joined the Blades. Enemies just hours ago. Now protectors of Skyrim's leaders. The Dragonborn turned again. To the crowd he had just united. Dark elves. Argonians. Kajiat. This is where we move forward. A pause. Blackreach. Some looked unsure. Underground, one asked. The Dragonborn smirked slightly. You'll see. He gestured outward. It's time. The Kajiat caravan leader stepped forward. This one will follow. An Argonian nodded. We will stand with you. Even the dark elves, who had once kept their distance, stepped forward willingly. We'll come. The Dragonborn nodded. Good. Because now, this wasn't just an army. It was a people. They began to move. Out of Windhelm. Dragons circling above. A procession unlike anything Skyrim had ever seen. But before they could leave, a group approached. Small. Worn. Only 20. They walked slowly. Then stopped. And knelt. Before Stendarr. My lord, one said quietly. Stendarr stepped forward. Arise. They didn't. We failed, another said. A pause. Our hall. Destroyed. Silence. Vampires. The word carried weight. Most of us died. Another. Only 20 remain. The Dragonborn's expression hardened. The vigilance of Stendarr, he said quietly. They nodded. We seek only to continue his word. Stendarr looked at them. Not with anger, but with something deeper. You endured. A pause. That is not failure. The Dragonborn stepped forward. You need a place. They looked at him. We do. He nodded. I have one. A pause. In Blackreach. Confusion flickered. Underground, one asked. Safe, the Dragonborn replied. Defensible. Another pause. And growing. He looked at them directly. You can rebuild there. Silence. A new hall, one whispered. The Dragonborn nodded. A stronger one. Stendarr spoke softly. I will watch over it. That was enough. The remaining vigilants bowed their heads. We accept. Hope. Returning again. And so. They moved. The Dragonborn at the front. Murrock beside him. Skyrend above. Talos and Stendarr walking among mortals. Behind them. Nords. Elves. Argonians. Kajiat. Even former Thalmor. And the last of the vigilants. All heading toward one place. Blackreach. A hidden kingdom. A rising power. Where leaders would gather. Armies would form. And the future of Skyrim would be decided. The journey ended where few in Skyrim had ever stood. The Tower of Emzark rose before them. Ancient. Silent. And now, guarded. The massive entrance had been expanded, carved wide enough for dragons themselves. The Dragonborn stepped forward, turning to those gathered behind him. Ulfric, Murok, the Ebony Warrior, and the two gods, Talos and Stendar, along with everyone who had followed. This, the Dragonborn said, is the only way in. A pause. For now. He gestured to the structure. The other entrances were destroyed. Murmurs spread. Why? One asked. The Dragonborn's expression grew more serious. They led to ruins. Another pause. Full of things we're not ready to deal with yet. He looked outward. Almost thoughtful. But maybe one day. A pause. We fix that too. Confusion flickered across faces. Fix what? Ulfric asked. The Dragonborn exhaled slowly. The Falmer. Silence. They weren't always monsters. He looked around. They were snow elves. That alone stunned many. Driven underground. Betrayed. Changed. A pause. But they were people once. The weight of that truth settled heavily. Then, Stendar stepped forward. Then they will be again. The Dragonborn blinked. What? Stendar raised his hand. Calm. Certain. I will show them mercy. Before anyone could react. Light spread. Not just here. Not just in Blackreach. But across Skyrim. Through caves. Through ruins. Through the deepest tunnels. Reaching places no one had seen in centuries. And though none present could see it, it happened. The Falmer. Twisted. Broken. Changed. Began to shift. Their forms straightened. Their sight returned. Their minds cleared. The corruption. Gone. And in its place, what remained? Snow elves. Whole again. Back at the tower. Stendar lowered his hand. It is done. Silence. You just, Ulfric started. Restored an entire race, another whispered. Even Murok looked stunned. That level of power. Talos stepped forward. And now. He raised his hand as well. Together, Talos and Stendar spoke. Not aloud, but into the minds of every snow elf across Skyrim. A message. Come to Blackreach. You are safe. You are no longer hunted. The war between you and the Nords is long over. Come. Rejoin the world. A meeting will be held. Peace will be forged. A pause. In the kingdom of a future god. Back at the tower, the Dragonborn froze. The what? Everyone turned. Future god, someone repeated. All eyes slowly shifted. To him, the Dragonborn stood still. Even he looked caught off guard. You could have warned me, he muttered. Talos smirked slightly. Where would the fun be in that? Stendar simply watched him. Calm. Knowing. Ulfric stepped back slightly. Is that true? Murok crossed his arms. It would explain much. The Ebony Warrior said nothing. But his respect had clearly grown. The Dragonborn exhaled. One problem at a time. But deep down, he knew. This was bigger than he thought. Much bigger. Because now, he wasn't just building a kingdom. He wasn't just uniting Skyrim. He wasn't just fighting gods. He was becoming something else entirely. Something the world had not seen since. Talos himself, and Blackreach, was about to become the center of it all. The gates of the Tower of Emzark opened. And one by one, they entered. At first it was darkness. Then, light. A vast, glowing cavern stretched endlessly before them. Blackreach, but not the Blackreach of old. It had changed. Homes lined the stone pathways. Barracks stood tall. Forges burned bright. And at the center, a city. No, a kingdom. By the gods, Ulfric whispered. Even Murrock paused. This was built in so little time. The ebony warrior simply looked around. This is no mere stronghold. Talos smiled faintly. No, it is the beginning of something far greater. The people behind them gasped. Dark elves, Argonians, Kajiat, all staring in disbelief. This is our home, one asked. The Dragonborn stepped forward. Yeah. A pause. Welcome. He didn't waste time. Turning immediately. To the blades. They stood ready. Alongside the Thalmor who had joined them. And the ebony warrior. New orders. They straightened. There are 8 holds left. A pause. I want 10 blades sent to each one. Murmurs. Bring back every remaining Jarl. Another pause. And General Tullius. Silence. We're holding this meeting as soon as possible. The ebony warrior nodded. It will be done. The blades moved instantly. The Thalmor followed with them. Now protectors of Skyrim's future. The Dragonborn turned and walked toward it. His castle. Massive. Dominant. Waiting. They really built this without me, he muttered. He entered. Inside. Scholars. Blades. Archivists. Waiting. He didn't sit. Didn't rest. Record everything. They moved quickly. And he spoke. Murrock. Hermias Mora. Talos. Stendar. The dragons. The alliance. The war. Every detail. Every step. Because this was history. And it needed to be remembered. Then, he stepped outside. And saw them. His army. Thousands. Blades. Recruits. Workers. All gathered. Waiting. For him. The Dragonborn walked forward. Silence fell instantly. You've all been busy, he said. A faint ripple of laughter. He looked across them. Every face. You built this. A pause. You made something out of nothing. Another. And now. His voice hardened. We protect it. Cheers erupted. We defend it. Louder. And when the time comes. He raised his hand slightly. We fight for it. The roar of the army shook Blackreach itself. Then, Talos stepped forward. The Dragonborn glanced at him. Don't. Too late. Talos spoke. Follow him well. A pause. Because you do not follow a man. Silence began to fall. You follow a future god. The world seemed to stop. What? Someone whispered. Shock spread like wildfire. Even the Dragonborn facepalmed slightly. Really? But before anything else could be said, a light appeared. Soft. Silver. At the edge of Blackreach. Figures emerged. Dozens. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Snow elves. Whole. Restored. Alive. Gasps echoed everywhere. They're real. They're back. The snow elves stepped forward cautiously. Then one spoke. We heard the call. Another. We felt the change. Then, they saw him. The Dragonborn. You. Whispers spread among them. He is the one. The one who wished for our return. The one who gave us back ourselves. One by one. They knelt. Then all of them. We will follow you. A pause. We will worship you. as the god of peace and prosperity. The Dragonborn froze. That's not. Too late. Because another light appeared. Brighter. Golden. Warmer. A figure stepped through it. Radiant. Ancient. Oriel. The god of the snow elves. Silence fell completely. Even Talos watched. Oriel stepped forward. His gaze rested on the Dragonborn. You have done what none could. A pause. You restored my people. He turned slightly. To you, Stendar, my thanks. Stendar nodded calmly. Oriel looked back to the Dragonborn. You are not yet ascended. Another pause. But in my eyes, you already stand as a god. Silence. Complete. Unshaken. Because now, it wasn't just mortals saying it. Not just Talos, but another god. Confirming it. The Dragonborn stood at the center of it all. An army. A kingdom. Dragons. Gods. And now, an entire race. Kneeling before him. And whether he wanted it or not, the world had already begun to see him as something more. Blackreach had already become impossible. A kingdom beneath the world. Dragons above. Armies below. Mortals. Gods. And still, it wasn't finished. Because then, the sky itself answered. 7 more beams of divine light struck Blackreach. 1, 2, 3, until all 7 stood together. Figures formed within the radiance. Power. Ancient. Unmistakable. They stepped forward. Akatosh. Ark. Debella. Julianos. Kynareth. Mara. Zenithar. All present. Alongside. Talos. Stendar. Oriel. 10 gods. In one place. In the mortal realm. No one spoke. No one could. Even the dragons lowered their heads. Even Murok stood in silence. Even Ulfric speechless. Because this had never happened before. Then, Akatosh stepped forward. Time itself seemed to slow with him. His voice wasn't loud, but it echoed through everything. Dragonborn. The world held its breath. You who carry my blood. A pause. You who have reshaped this world. Another. You who have united what was divided. The Dragonborn didn't move. Didn't speak. For once. Even he waited. Akatosh raised his hand. I declare your ascension. Silence shattered. Gasps. Shock. Disbelief. You will be the first. A pause. Alive. To be recognized. As a god. The words echoed across Blackreach. Then beyond. Far beyond. Everywhere. Across Skyrim. Every man. Every woman. Every child. Heard it. The Dragonborn. Ascending. As a god. And not one voice. Among the divine. Spoke against it. Talos nodded. Stendar stood firm. Oriel watched with approval. And the others. All agreed. Because this wasn't a question. It was a recognition. A truth. The Dragonborn stood still. You're serious. Talos smirked slightly. They rarely joke. Akatosh continued. We will remain. A pause. To guide you. Another. As you take your place. The Dragonborn exhaled slowly. Guess I don't get a choice. Mara smiled gently. You chose this long ago. And with that, everything changed. Again. Because now, it wasn't just belief. It wasn't just worship. It was official. The 8 had become 9. Now, the 9 had become 10. Below, the blades moved quickly, some already inspired, others still in shock, but all with purpose. Build shrines. Now, stone was carried, tools raised, and one by one, 11 shrines began to rise. For the gods, all of them, Talos, Stendar, Oriel, the 8, and now, the newest among them, the Dragonborn, the god of peace and prosperity, standing not above the people, but among them, as Blackreach became more than a kingdom, more than a city, more than a refuge. It became the center of the world, where mortals and gods stood together. And for the first time in history, the future of Tamriel was guided by all of them. Blackreach did not stay quiet for long. One by one, they arrived, blades escorting them, jarls of every hold, and with them, a man who stopped at the edge of the great cavern, General Tullius. His eyes moved slowly. Ulfric, standing freely. Then, upward, his breath caught. Gods. Not 1, not 2, 10, standing openly, watching, judging, without hesitation. Tullius dropped to one knee, and the jarls followed. Every single one. Even Ulfric bowed his head again. Respect. True respect. The Dragonborn stepped forward. Enough. They rose. Still shaken. Still trying to understand what they were seeing. The Dragonborn looked around. This meeting won't be hidden. A pause. It will be held in front of everyone. Murmurs spread, but none objected. Bring a table. Orders were carried out instantly. A massive table was brought forward. Chairs set, placed at the center of Blackreach, in full view of the people, of the army, of the gods. Because this wasn't just politics anymore. This was history. Before they could sit, a roar echoed above. Odaviing descended, landing near the gathering. And from his back, Delphine. She stepped down, then froze. What in the... Her eyes moved. Snow elves. They're back. Then higher. Gods. There's more now. She looked at the Dragonborn. What did I miss? He shrugged slightly. A lot. She looked again, then noticed who stood at the center. Akatosh. Her voice dropped. Is that? Yeah. Silence. And he declared you a god, she asked. The Dragonborn rubbed the back of his neck slightly. Apparently. Delphine blinked. Of course he did. The table was ready. The leaders took their seats. The Dragonborn at the center. On one side. The blades. On the other. The rulers of Skyrim. The gods standing behind. Watching. The Dragonborn looked around. Let's begin. He leaned forward slightly. Roll call. Silence fell again. He looked to the first. Esbern. Esbern nodded. Here. Delphine. Delphine crossed her arms slightly. Here. The Ebony Warrior. Ebony Warrior gave a simple nod. Here. The Dragonborn nodded. The blades are present. He turned. General Tullius. Tullius straightened slightly. Here. Then. One by one. He called them. Jarl Elisif of Solitude. Elisif the Fair spoke calmly. Here. Jarl Eidgrad of Morthal. Eidgrad Ravencrone nodded. Here. Jarl Igmund of Markarth. Igmund responded. Here. Jarl Sigurd of Falkreath. Sigurd leaned forward slightly. Here. Jarl Balgruf of Whiterun. The Dragonborn paused. A small smile. Balgruf the Greater met his gaze. Here, my friend. The Dragonborn nodded once. Then continued. Jarl Skald of Dawnstar. Skald the Elder answered firmly. Here. Jarl Layla of Riffin. Layla Lawgiver spoke. Here. Jarl Courier of Winterhold. Courier gave a short nod. Here. Finally. The Dragonborn looked across the table. Jarl Ulfric of Windhelm. Ulfric Stormcloak sat straighter. Here. Silence followed. Everyone accounted for. Every leader. Every power. In one place. The Dragonborn leaned back slightly. Eyes moving across them all. Then to the gods behind. Then to the people watching. Good. A pause. Because what we decide next. His voice hardened. Decides the fate of Skyrim. And no one doubted it. Not anymore. The cavern fell into a heavy, expectant silence. Every seat filled. Every voice present. The Dragonborn looked across the table. Jarls. Generals. Blades. Then behind them. Gods. We begin. 1. Unity of Skyrim. The first topic came naturally. We stand divided, the Dragonborn said. A pause. No more. Eyes turned to Ulfric Stormcloak and Tullius. Tension rose. Then, Ulfric spoke first. The war ends. Tullius nodded. For now, and for what comes next. Agreement. To end of the Civil War. Signed. No more blood between Nords and Imperials. 3. Integration of all races. The Dragonborn stood slightly. Racism ends. Silence. No more segregation. He looked directly at Ulfric. No more gray quarter treatment. Ulfric nodded. It will be corrected. The Jarls followed. 4. Sanctuary in Blackreach. All races officially welcomed. Blackreach declared neutral ground. 5. The return of the Snow Elves. Gasps still echoed when they were mentioned. They will be protected, the Dragonborn said. They will not be hunted. Unanimous agreement. 6. The vigilance of Stendar. Rebuilding approved. Official support granted. Stendar watched silently. 7. Dragon Alliance. Dragons formally recognized as allies. No longer enemies of Skyrim. Even the most skeptical Jarls agreed. 8. Blades Authority. The Blades were reinstated. As protectors of Skyrim. Command structure led by the Dragonborn. 9. Military unification. Stormcloaks and Imperial forces merged into one command. Temporary, but necessary. 10. Thalmor threat. The mood shifted instantly. Serious. Heavy. They're coming, Tullius said. Ulfric nodded. We all know it. The Dragonborn leaned forward. Good. Confusion spread. Good, one Jarl asked. They make the first move. A pause. We let them. Silence. Then, when they attack. His eyes hardened. We don't just defend. Another pause. We push back. Leaning forward. We take the fight to them. Shock. You mean, Tullius started. The Somerset Isles. The words hit like a hammer. We end the Thalmor. Silence. Deep. Then, Ulfric spoke. You're serious. The Dragonborn didn't blink. Yes. Tullius leaned back slightly. We'll need the Empire. Then tell the Emperor, the Dragonborn replied. A pause. We may need his full strength. Tullius nodded slowly. He'll listen. 11. The Thieves' Guild. Thieves' Guild was brought up. Criminal influence. Corruption. Decision. Arrest and dismantle. 12. The Dark Brotherhood. The room darkened slightly. Dark Brotherhood. Assassins. Murderers. No debate. Execution, Ulfric said. Agreed, Tullius added. 13. The Blackbriar family. Blackbriar family. Corruption. Power abuse. Decision. Arrest. Especially Maven, one Jarl muttered. The Dragonborn nodded. She will answer for everything. 14. The Silverblood family. Silverblood family. Exploitation. Control of Markarth. Decision. Arrest and dismantle influence. 15. Economic stability. Trade routes reestablished. Blackreach to become central hub. Zenithar approved silently. 16. Rebuilding holds. Resources allocated. Every hold strengthened. 17. Military training. The Ebony Warrior placed in charge. Training to begin immediately. 18. Dragon communication network. Dragons used for scouting and messaging. Fastest system in Tamriel. 19. Religious unity. All gods recognized. Worship free across Skyrim. No more bans. Talos watched quietly. Satisfied. 20. Preparation timeline. Immediate readiness. War expected soon. The meeting slowed. Decisions made. Paths chosen. An alliance formed. All of Skyrim. United. For the first time in its history. The Dragonborn leaned back slightly. Anything else? Silence. Then, he spoke again. Yeah. A pause. I've got one. He looked toward one of the Jarls. Toward Coria. Winterhold. The ruined city came to mind. I'd like to see it restored. A pause. To what it once was. Silence. Then, the gods moved. All of them. Power surged. Not violently, but with purpose. The ground trembled. Far away. At Winterhold. It began. Stone lifted. Structures rebuilt themselves. Walls reformed. The shattered city rose, as if time itself reversed. The great collapse. Undone. And within moments, Winterhold stood again. Whole. Strong. Alive. Back in Blackreach. Silence ruled. Courier fell to his knees. It's restored. The Dragonborn exhaled slowly. Thank you. Akatosh nodded once. It is fitting. The meeting was over. But what it created would change everything. Because now, Skyrim wasn't preparing to survive. It was preparing to win. The meeting should have ended there. Decisions made. Alliances formed. But one thing still remained. Unspoken. Yet obvious. Jarl Elisif, the fair, was the first to rise. There is one final matter. The room quieted again. Every eye turned. Skyrim needs a high king. Silence. It wasn't debated. It didn't need to be. Every gaze slowly shifted. To him. The Dragonborn. Even Ulfric Stormcloak stood. There's no question. Tullius nodded. No argument from the Empire. One by one. The Jarls spoke. Balgruf the Greater. About time. Courier. You've already proven it. Layla Lawgiver. You have my support. And so on. Until all had spoken. Unanimous. The Dragonborn exhaled slowly. Guess I don't get out of this one either. Talos chuckled quietly. Not this time. Akatosh stepped forward slightly. Then it is done. A pause. The Dragonborn is now High King of Skyrim. The words echoed across Blackreach. And beyond. Cheers erupted. Not forced. Not commanded. Earned. The Dragonborn raised a hand slightly. All right. The noise settled. If I'm High King. A pause. Then this place. He gestured around Blackreach. Is now the capital. Murmurs spread. And it needs a name. He thought for a moment. Then. Nova Pax. Silence. Then understanding. New peace, someone whispered. The meaning hit instantly. Hope. Unity. Everything they were building. Ulfric nodded. Fits perfectly. Tullius agreed. It does. Even the gods approved. Stendarr smiled faintly. A fitting name. Talos crossed his arms. For a fitting ruler. And just like that, Blackreach was no more. It was now. Nova Pax. The heart of a new Skyrim. The Dragonborn didn't sit long. We're not done. He looked around the table again. We need more allies. A pause. I'm going to Hammerfell. Murmurs spread. The Redguards. Hammerfell. They hate the Thalmor as much as we do. Tullius nodded. They'll listen. Ulfric agreed. Good choice. The Dragonborn turned. Esbern. Esbern straightened. Delphine. Delphine stepped forward. I need you both in Raven Rock. They listened closely. Talk to their leader. A pause. Help me secure an alliance with Morrowind. Morrowind. Esbern nodded. It will be done. Delphine smirked slightly. Back to work. The Dragonborn turned again. To the Ebony Warrior. Ebony Warrior met his gaze. I have another task for you. A pause. The Orc strongholds. Orsinium was not far in spirit, if not in land. They're powerful. They deserve a place in what we're building. The Ebony Warrior nodded once. They will be approached. Then, the Dragonborn looked to Murrock. Murrock stood calmly. You're with me. A pause. Hammerfell. Murrock smirked slightly. This will be interesting. The Dragonborn stepped back. That's everything. A pause. Prepare. His voice carried across Nova Pax. Because peace. Another pause. Is coming. The meeting was dismissed. Leaders stood. Allies formed. The future was moving. But then, a voice cut through. Igmund, Jarl of Markarth. What about the Forsworn? Silence returned. They hate Nords. A pause. They'd side with the Thalmor without hesitation. The weight of that hung heavily. The Dragonborn turned slowly. Then, looked upward. At the sky of Nova Pax. At the dragons circling above. All 26. I need you. They listened. Every single one. Find the Forsworn. A pause. And end the threat. Silence. No hesitation. No doubt. Roars shook the cavern. Agreement. The dragons scattered. A storm of wings and power. Carrying out the will of their king. Their god. And as they left, the Dragonborn stood at the center of it all. High King. God. Leader. Preparing not just for war, but for a future where peace would finally be real. To be continued.